Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Victory Road World Cup of Pokemon VGC stream. This is our day 2 stream of week 3, and I am back, Evan, and I am joined by Yuki, and we are bringing you guys this final, very hype match. And I'm also like, it's a coincidence that Yuki is also like part Japanese, so this is a match that we are very excited to feature to you guys.
Yes, definitely. Obviously, can't be biased on the commentating side, but excited to see my home country being represented today in the stream, and yeah, excited to be back on the desk with you here. Really excited to have watched the previous match that you casted with Costa. It was a very decisive match. Like the other matches we've casted today, Evan. They were all great, and they all were influential in the team's win loss for their week and whether they'll qualify for the next round. But that one match was the one that was like the decider for those two teams. So the fact that I went to game 3 and seeing all those adjustments and just seeing the final result was just really exciting to see from the back. So yeah, really fun match to watch.
Yeah, I think everybody played well today from the matches that we saw. Like, even if the score was 2-0, like you said earlier, there's still a lot of fight into it, and it's not exactly a landslide victory. And as casters, I kind of feel like it's a bit bittersweet, right? To send some teams off, or like congratulate some teams to qualify into the group stage. But this is the harsh reality. This is the competition. Everybody is here to join the World Cup to play.
I completely agree, but at the same time, I think it's great that we have casters so that we can kind of point out things that might go brushed under otherwise. So I think we talked a little bit earlier about how Jamaica on the surface looks like they didn't do so well this World Cup because they have 0 points still after the end of 3 weeks, but in reality, they really had close sets in the first 2 weeks, just going down 5-3. That's not something that you might notice unless you look into the details. But because we're casters, we need to look into every single nitty gritty. So I'm really excited to be here to point out those kind of niche things.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is so enjoyable to feature all these countries, every one of you that joined the competition and shed little bit of light with the stories that go on behind all the numbers that you actually see on screen. And let's jump into the matchup right now. This is Austria versus Japan, and not a lot of matches are played right now. Austria is actually one win, and then Japan has two.
Right. And this is a pretty commanding position for Japan this week. They already have 2 wins, so they're already guaranteed to go make it through to the qualifying round. Looking to make it into the top cut after that, after they were in the really what they call the death group between Peru, France, and Mexico. So really curious to see if they make it far past that. But what's still in contention is Austria. So Austria still has just one tie from this week, and they're up against Ecuador and Portugal for that second place slot to make it into the next qualifying stage. So yeah, we are really interested to see if Austria can defeat Japan this week, which is their only condition for moving on.
Yeah, so welcome to Group A. And I think in this matchup in particular, Austria going up against Japan, this is a David versus Goliath story. And Austria's only job right now is to defeat Japan. Like, if they were to be able to get a 5-3 victory, over Japan, then there is a good chance that they make it through, regardless of how the Portugal versus Ecuador match turns out.
Absolutely. And yeah, let's go right ahead into these two player spotlights. So on the left, we have Hirofumi Kimura from Japan. His accolades are well known amongst most BGC players, having gotten a national champion title 2 years in a row, and then getting the finalist in that same year in 2019 with that iconic Umbreon. We'll be curious to see if they bring that today with us here. And then finally, also getting a result as a top 16 in Japan Nationals this year. So clearly a force to be reckoned with in the current rule set. So yeah, someone with really high accolades that most people know about, but not gonna Alexander Kuhn not going to make it easy for him. Someone who also has a lot of accomplishments dating back to 2016, actually. You can see all the top fours at regionals and the top 16 at the German nationals that got him to the day two competition at Worlds that year. One thing that's really interesting to point out is that Alexander Kuhn here speaks Japanese, so is very close to the Japanese community. So this is an interesting thing that we are not sure if Hirofumi has incorporated into his scouting. Whether Alexander here can incorporate a lot of the knowledge that he has of the Japanese meta, being able to read all those different blog posts the Japanese put out. So really curious to see if he's able to counter team correctly, so to say.
Yeah, really quick, I just want to point out that Alexander, back in the ORAS days, he was a very influential figure, and he actually helped translate some of the team reports coming out from Japan for the community. So shout outs to that. And some information that, like back then, he tended to favor hyper offense teams. So it actually is not what we are seeing here. What an interesting team being brought. So Alexander is bringing Kyogre and Solgaleo, and then there is an Entei, Rillaboom Among Us, and and Indeedee, and Hirofumi's team looks so familiar.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we already saw Solgaleo Kyogre composition earlier today, where we see this Solgaleo go for Max Steel Spike, Max Quake to make the Kyogre, bulkier and go for Calm Mind boosts and things like that. Not sure if that's exactly what Alexander is going for, but it seems a little bit familiar. Over on Hirofumi's side, this is actually his team that he used to get top 16 at Japan Nats this year. And, it's a very original composition. And particularly the Tornadus is very interesting. It's usually paired with Kyogre, so it can get those hurricanes off and, deal super effective damage against the grass types that Kyogre's water types struggle against. And then the Umbreon, which is, quite a unique Pokemon that Hirofumi has driven to success both in 2019 and 2022. So especially with the Solgaleo wanting to get some boosts with weakness policy potentially, Umbreon able to take advantage of that with power play. So really curious to see if he brings it. But let's go ahead and jump right into game one here.
Yeah, here we go. Some of you guys know Hirofumi as Ka-Eru, and Alexander is known as Hibiki. So this is definitely a clash. And we are actually watching the game in Japanese, so this could be a challenge for both of us. I'm ready to take the challenge on because I studied Japanese a little bit. But here come the leads. Umbreon straight away with that Charizard with the potential to switch in Groudon versus the Entei and the Solgaleo, and there could be a strategy to prop a weakness policy here.
Absolutely. When you see Entei Solgaleo, I think most players might think, oh, here comes a Bulldoze and a max move from Solgaleo backed by a weakness policy. Unclear if that's going to be the case here, but definitely threatening it, and doesn't make it so easy for him, though, since the Charizard is out. The Charizard able to, hit really strong attacks against the Solgaleo, not affected by the Bulldoze. But here we see, I believe, a Snarl coming out from Entei, so a little bit more of a defensive turn over for Alexander.
Yeah, interesting protect coming out from Hirofumi, trying to test the waters and see how things play out, and not Dynamax right off the bat. And Umbreon now goes for the Yawn, but Solgaleo goes for the Trick Room, not even worried that the Charizard is going to go for a Max Wildfire into itself.
Yeah, that was a really, really bold move from Alexander. Being threatened from both the Charizard mainly, but also the Umbreon with foul play. Could have taken a lot of damage that turn, but taking advantage of Hirofumi's passive play there, maybe respecting the Dynamax option from Solgaleo and gets the Trick Room off. But on the other hand, Umbreon is probably going to be the slowest in Trick Room, so able to get some Snarls or foul plays off before the opposing Kyogre or Solgaleo is about to attack. So still not exactly clear which one is more favored.
Yeah, and I think Solgaleo kind of threatens the Charizard there, so it does make sense for Hirofumi to switch the Charizard out. And Hirofumi doesn't know that Alexander was going to switch the Kyogre in, but switches in the Groudon instead, and now has the advantage of weather. And Umbreon just does what Umbreon does best, goes for yet another Yawn, catching the Kyogre switch as the Solgaleo finishes the turn with a Sunsteel Strike. I think that's reasonable damage, but unfortunately, like Umbreon is just way too bulky.
Right, and it's quite curious that Hirofumi keeps going for the yawn into the different slot other than Solgaleo. If the yawn had gone to Solgaleo this turn, for example, then Alexander might potentially have to go for a double switch because obviously the Kyogre doesn't want to stay in Sun against the Groudon. But since the yawn is put into that slot, he's very highly incentivized to switch it out, and something that he probably already wanted to do anyways. So yeah, curious to see what the Umbreon does here, whether it yawns in that same slot again. But we see the Dynamax.
Yeah, so Alexander's presenting two Pokemon that are weak to ground, right, in front of the Groudon, and I think the Dynamax kind of makes sense. You have the mind games of whether this Solgaleo is holding the weakness policy or not, and I think switching back out into Entei presents a bit more mind games as well because you are keeping the last Pokemon a secret, as I believe that Yawn actually goes into the Solgaleo, and let's see what the Solgaleo does. Max Steel Spike into the Groudon. Notably, Solgaleo is faster than Groudon in Trick Room.
Right. So perhaps this was a turn where Alexander sort of trusted Hirofumi to go for the same yawn into the partner Solgaleo, but instead correctly reads that and goes into the Solgaleo instead. Now its Dynamax is threatened by either sleep or having to switch out. One possibility, though, is that the Solgaleo has access to Wild Charge and set up the Electric Terrain by attacking the Umbreon with it. So this is the moment of truth on whether this is their way of getting out of the yawn lock.
Yeah, here comes the switch in, revealing the last Pokemon on Alexander's side, which is the Indeedee. And Indeedee procs the Psychic Seed. Yeah, and I'm curious to see whether the Solgaleo actually goes for that Max Lightning. Umbreon goes for the Moonlight. One really quick thing to note just now is that the Groudon missed the Precipice Blitz onto the Solgaleo, so we are still not sure whether the Solgaleo has a weakness policy or not, and it goes straight, knowing that it's going to fall asleep on that last rush, right, last turn of Dynamax to go for the Psychic Terrain boosted Psychic Max Mindstorm into the Groudon to remove it completely from play.
Yes, and really, smart move from Alexander to bring in the Psychic Terrain before using the Max Mindstorm to get that extra boost in, attack power to take down that Groudon, which wouldn't have been possible without it. So yeah, I'd say he did before getting his Solgaleo to go to sleep, was using his last turn very well, but I think now this might be the comeback for Hirofumi, not using his Dynamax yet, and only having to face down an Indeedee, not known for being able to dish out too much damage.
Yeah, and like the Trick Room turns are slowly wearing out despite Hirofumi switching that Regieleki in. We do know that the Charizard is in the back, so I believe Hirofumi is going for, as I say, like a Charizard Dynamax strategy. He's actually going straight for a Dynamax on the Regieleki to sort of ensure that it has a lot of bulk. And it does make sense in this situation because the Indeedee would probably just go for like a Expanding Force, which doesn't do damage into the Umbreon, and doubling the HP from the Regieleki could make sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, trying to take advantage of the passive board state for Alexander's and not letting the Indeedee do too much damage to Regieleki by maxing, and also be able to do a lot of damage to Solgaleo, taking it down to almost half. Even if it had one more Dynamax turn left, another max move in Electric Terrain would have taken care of it. So now we see the Trick Room expire, and all of Alexander's Pokemon are slower than this Regieleki, so it should be able to take a shot and KO at least one more Pokemon before it gets knocked down in return. The only exception might be a Amoonguss in the back to redirect the Regieleki. We'll see if that's going to be coming in instead of the Kyogre.
Yeah, so I think all four Pokemon were revealed.
Yes.
It was Kyogre, Indeedee, Solgaleo, and Entei. And like what I want to point out is that Alexander has been keeping the Solgaleo on the field, but always having to, with the Umbreon's Yawn, right, always forced to be switching partner slot out on and on again, and that Hirofumi is really taking full advantage of that and taking important KOs. That foul play coming out from that Umbreon catching the Entei on the switching, that was perfect. So I think Hirofumi is really gaining a lot of board control with his trusty little Umbreon. So here comes the first move of this turn. Regieleki is always the fastest. The Life Orb, Psychic Terrain, the Life Orb Max Electric into the Indeedee slot and catches the Protect. And I'm curious to see what that what the Solgaleo tries to do if it manages to wake up.
Right, and this is a crucial turn for Hirofumi, getting to finally find out that the weakness policy is on Solgaleo, and it wakes up. Does it attack? No, it goes for the Trick Room, and yeah, this is a pretty interesting position because now the Indeedee is still on the field, able to redirect attacks from Umbreon. The only exception being if the Umbreon has Snarl, it should be able to take out the Solgaleo at that amount of health left while bypassing the redirection from Follow Me. So we'll have to find out if that's an option for him. But if he doesn't, might be a pretty hard position for him, being able to go for a potential Earthquake to knock out the Regieleki while doing damage to Umbreon. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But if the Umbreon is able to get through this turn, then it'll still be the slowest in Trick Room. So Hirofumi definitely not out of it.
Yeah, but what a curious play earlier, going for the max move from the Ileki into the Indeedee. I think Hirofumi was probably confident that the Umbreon would be able to take out the Solgaleo in one hit, but it did not. So the Trick Room is now being set up, and at the same time Solgaleo's weakness policy is being procced. So here comes a foul play and doesn't do significant damage into the Indeedee actually. And here comes the Sunsteel Strike, catching the Regieleki's Protect, right? It completely ignoring it and going straight for the Umbreon. But wow, Umbreon takes it pretty well.
Right, yeah, Regieleki, pretty frail Pokemon, so probably scared of a Earthquake or something from the Solgaleo. So opting to max guard for the last turn Dynamax, but for the Indeedee, its attack being pretty low to begin with, so the foul play damage is quite mitigated. So yeah, I think it's actually going to be quite hard for Hirofumi to take down the Indeedee without leading Umbreon's partner to be vulnerable. So yeah, it was looking pretty good for Hirofumi for a long time, using the Umbreon effectively in Trick Room, but I think Alexander may have found his one win condition. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it was a very tricky situation that Hirofumi didn't double up into the Solgaleo, understanding that the Solgaleo has Trick Room to take it out immediately, and now Hirofumi really has to try his best to stall out the remaining turns of Trick Room, and that's a pretty tall order.
Right, especially with this Charizard switching in for Kyogre, not something you want to be seeing as a Charizard player. We see the Umbreon going for the Moonlight, recovering its HP and be able to take more hits from the Solgaleo. Not recovering as much health as usual since the rain is up.
Yeah, but not targeting the foul play into the Solgaleo, right? Kind of opting to heal more instead of get its move being redirected into the Indeedee. So that's an advanced play coming out from Alexander, being able to switch that Kyogre in and put in so much pressure, essentially getting it in for free and being able to just dish off water spouts.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a very much trusted play by Alexander, seeing that the Indeedee is there, assuming that Hirofumi won't go for the foul play again, seeing how much little damage did the previous turn. So really excellent read from Alexander, paying off dividends for him here. And now he has an Indeedee to further support his Kyogre, which is going to just keep bashing out a lot of damage to these Pokemon that just can't resist the water attacks.
Oh, once again, the foul play goes into the slot that I didn't expect. It goes into the Kyogre. It could help in reducing the damage of water spouts. The Protect comes out from the Charizard. Hirofumi is really working really hard to make sure he gets to stall these Trick Room turns out, because in the end game, if Charizard and Regieleki were to make it out alive, then they would demand a lot of control on the field, always being the fastest. So Alexander also switching the Indeedee one turn in advance and keeping the Solgaleo safe in the back. more so using the Indeedee to protect the Kyogre. I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. And we have one turn left of Trick Room. If the Regieleki can go for a double protect, or sorry, the Charizard can go for a double protect here, this could be big, but no, it looks like it's going to fail. So now we have, Trick Room expired and Regieleki against the world.
Yeah, so that was the play that Hirofumi had to do on his way out, and he fully understands it. And I thought that Helping Hand was so interesting, like with knowing that the Kyogre is in complete control, not even worrying to go for the follow me there.
Right, and I think that's a really good call out because I don't think that Helping Hand was exactly necessary there. The Water Spout was more than enough to do the damage on Regieleki. So instead of revealing that there was a Helping Hand there and showing all 4 moves of the Indeedee, could have gone for maybe like a Expanding Force to bluff the 4th slot, since it seems pretty commanding here for Alexander.
And while the Electro Wrap actually misses onto the Kyogre, so it's sort of adding thought into injury, and Kyogre is able to dish off that last Water Spout, very powerful, able to close out the game for Alexander. Like, despite all the yawns, right, in the early turns of the game, still managing to clutch this game out. Really props to Alexander for getting this first win.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it looked like Hirofumi had a lot of control for most of the match, like you said, with the Umbreon cycling the yawns and things like that. It seemed like almost the Trick Room was more in favor of Hirofumi's Umbreon being able to, yawn faster, being able to Moonlight faster, was the main threat to Alexander. But I think the most pivotal point was when the Solgaleo woke up on the first turn of just after one turn of sleep and was able to get that second Trick Room off. And the Umbreon just didn't have enough support and HP left to apply the same pressure it did earlier on. So maybe perhaps Hirofumi didn't incorporate some Steel Spike boosts, and thinking that the foul play would knock out at around the 50% mark originally. So I think overall how Hirofumi played was correct and being able to stall out the Trick Rooms from using the Umbreon well. But over on Alexander's end, maybe he could adapt to not be so aggressive with setting up Trick Room immediately, given that there was the Umbreon. So I think both players have a lot of adjustments to make, and we have a really interesting game 2 ahead of us.
Yeah, that's true, and a lot of good information is being gleaned from both sides. Actually, I thought that Regieleki on that last turn of Dynamax was such a cool play, but unfortunately with that pivotal turn of Solgaleo waking up on the first turn and actually getting that Trick Room again just made it super difficult for Hirofumi. As we see, this should be the same leads again. So Entei and Solgaleo facing off against Charizard and Umbreon, and once again there could be the possibility of the Groudon switch in. And is Alexander on this game 2 brave enough to let the Solgaleo stay in and go for Trick Room?
Absolutely, yeah. I think game 1, that play was very, very bold and something that's kind of trusting of Hirofumi not to go for the obvious play, but if Hirofumi down one game, we might expect him to play a little bit safer. So curious to see how Alexander maneuvers this situation. One interesting thing to know is that Entei and Charizard, I believe, are speed ties if they are trained to heavily invest in their speed stats. So pretty important on if the Entei can go for the Snarl before the Charizard can go for a Wildfire, for example. And we see Alexander commit to the Solgaleo. So yeah, this is going to be a more action-packed turn 1.
Yeah, things are playing out so differently. And if Solgaleo Dynamaxes, this means Charizard did not Dynamax. So here comes the same first play coming out from Hirofumi with that Protect. Not wanting to... That's a Stone Age, right?
So the Bulldoze, I believe, to proc the weakness
policy. Oh my god, it's a Bulldoze. Yeah, because I recognize the words not to be Snarl. So things are playing out so different. And we already saw the weakness policy back in game 1, I believe. So Alexander is really pulling no stops here, going for the max Steel Spike, but it's not able to take the KO on this bulky little Umbreon.
Yes, absolutely. And the Umbreon still has yet to move, and I believe it's getting a yawn off onto the Entei. So same exact turn 1 from Hirofumi, no adjustments here. Thinking that the way he played the game 1 was perfect for the early game. But yeah, quite an interesting scenario because now the Solgaleo is completely unchecked as Dynamax. The Umbreon too low at health to be able to get another Yawn off, and we see the Entei switch out, not wanting to go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see like that the Solgaleo did not target into the Charizard, because Charizard is probably a very obvious max option. Instead, targeting into the Umbreon and doesn't get rewarded. Like Umbreon's bulk was really clutch for Hirofumi there. And wow, look at that speed interactions with Umbreon being slower. Like Umbreon being played in this game is just so cool to see. So the Kyogre actually switches in first, allowing the Groudon to then switch in to set up the Sun, and now this Charizard definitely like being faster than a Solgaleo is just unlocked and able to make full use of all 3 Dynamax turns.
Yeah, I think maybe this might be a turn of regret for Alexander because he might be able to take down the Charizard through the Protect with a max Rockfall, given the weakness policy and the 4 times effectiveness, but instead now, yeah, like we have the G-Max Wildfire coming in before the Solgaleo's attack, thanks to the higher speed stat Charizard naturally has. And yeah, Hirofumi is completely in the driver's seat. We don't see that many other Pokemon on Alexander's end that's capable of mitigating the damage of Charizard nor taking it down, especially in the Sun with the Kyogre already on the field.
Yeah, so switching this Entei in, like you have pointed out earlier, there could be speed ties involved if the Entei is trained to be the fastest with max speed EVs and could go for the Snarl here to try and salvage this game. And it does make sense for Hirofumi earlier to not go for an Airstream, targeting down straight into the Solgaleo with the Wildfire to take it out.
Right, I think perhaps this scenario could have happened a turn earlier and go for a max guard with a Solgaleo so that the Indeedee could protect the Solgaleo and make sure it doesn't get hit by the G-Max Wildfire. So maybe that must have also been a case where Alexander read Hirofumi reading that play and suspecting that he would target down the partner instead of Solgaleo itself. But yeah, obviously impossible to know how these players were thinking, but really interesting to see these reads go back and forth between Game 1 and Game 2, but it's looking like it's going to be favorable for Hirofumi in Game 2 here.
Yeah, I think this game is turning out to be a very nice game to see in week 3, right? The final week of qualifiers. A lot of high-level mind games going through from both players, trying to outread each other. But in this situation, I think Hirofumi has so much control, being able to set that Airstream boost onto the Groudon, and unfortunately Groudon missed that Precipice Blades, important damage into the Indeedee earlier, but in this 4 Pokemon versus 2 Pokemon scenario, I think Hirofumi has a few options here.
Absolutely, and I think a really easy thing to do is to say, okay, I'm going to max Airstream into the Indeedee, and then before the Kyogre can attack, I'm going to get a Precipice Blades in, but Precipice Blades not the most accurate attack. You could just go for a Follow Me and a Water Spout, and if the Precipice Blades misses, then Hirofumi will be out 2 Pokemon, but really wisely, retreating the Groudon, making sure that the Sun can come back later in the game in case something like the Precipice Blade miss happens, and instead of letting the Umbreon get knocked out this turn in its stead.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to Hirofumi's turn 1 play of that Protect into the Charizard. It actually was a nice flow chart to play things out, and it kind of works out all the way to this point. And I think bringing the Umbreon in to take the brunt of that G-Max Wildfire makes sense, because if Hirofumi has both Groudon and Regieleki in the back, Regieleki can easily help to control the speeds, right, and be able to try and close out the game if it doesn't miss any more Electro Webs. Like it missed one earlier. Groudon has been missing a few Precipice Blades, so I believe Hirofumi should get lucky in this towards the end of this game.
You're right, and I think Hirofumi is in a good enough spot where he doesn't have to rely on low accuracy moves. So instead of going for the Electro Web, he might be able to go for a Rising Voltage into the Indeedee, and then go for maybe a Heat Crash or Rock Slide, which is more accurate than a Precipice Blades. Because we're in the Sun and the Kyogre probably can't do as much damage, especially to the bulky Groudon.
Yeah, here
But
we
we
go.
see
This
him
is
go for
the
the yes.
yeah, the YOLO play of I believe you can miss that the electro web, right? And going straight for the helping hand. Hopefully going for Origin Pulse if the Kyogre survives. Oh, but unfortunately, Groudon is able to go finish off the game with that all important Precipice Blades. That was the turn that mattered, and good boy Groudon. Groudon did his job.
Yes, so Hirofumi go for the YOLO play, as you said, just making sure that he gets the win as long as the moves connect, which they did. So we see a 1-1 tie between these two. Just a really phenomenal match. I think we've been talking about how many reads are happening and how the Protect from Charizard turn 1 really translates to that end game we saw over by Hirofumi. I think one interesting thing to call out is that, I think Charizard is able to go for those protects turn 1, potentially even respecting the max rockfall coming out from the Solgaleo to knock it out even through protect, and that's only possible because Hirofumi actually has really two strong Dynamax candidates in the backs other than Charizard, Groudon and Regieleki, especially with the Life Orb, able to dish out tons of damage. So he thinks, okay, even if the Charizard goes down here, I'm not out of the game. I actually have two Pokemon on the back that can still Dynamax. So gives him a little bit more flexibility in terms of what he wants to max. Whereas on Alexander's side, a Solgaleo Pokemon that kind of struggles to provide value outside of Dynamax. So he has a little bit more of a rigid game plan. So we'll see if Hirofumi is able to capitalize that on in game 3.
Yeah, that's such a cool thing to point out in having multiple options in the back. And going back to thinking that Umbreon, right, being on the field, just sitting there, kind of acts like a sort of a follow me mon, being able to just redirect, quote unquote, redirect that max steel spike coming out from that Solgaleo back in turn 1. As we do see Hirofumi really just sticking to his plan, going for the Charizard and his trusty Umbreon lead, while Alexander switches it up this time, going for a Solgaleo and the Psychic Seed in DD lead.
Yes, I really, really like this adjustment over here from Alexander's side. Potentially hedging bets that the Charizard doesn't have a move like Heat Wave. All of his attacks, including the Dynamax attacks, are single target. So the Indeedee is way better of a support Pokemon for the Solgaleo, removing all threats of Charizard, being able to connect attacks onto the Solgaleo. So now it's a matter of how Hirofumi responds to this. I imagine he won't let his Charizard go down too easy, and this Umbreon is still relatively safe, being able to spread some yawns, but we see a Hurricane miss.
Yeah, so it was Helping Hand, followed by the Charizard missing the Hurricane, but Solgaleo doesn't go for a Rock move, goes for the Steel move, Sun Steel Strike, into the Umbreon. Like, so many mind games here, because Alexander didn't go for the Follow Me play. There was also the opportunity of going for like a Follow Me Trick Room as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a pretty peculiar spot now because thanks to that Helping Hand from Indeedee, this Umbreon is most likely in range of a Max Steel Spike from another Helping Hand. So this might be Alexander's way of being able to take down a Umbreon, without having to invest additional resources other than another Helping Hand from the Indeedee. It's just a matter of whether this Charizard will max and whether the Umbreon will switch out for the Groudon to get the Sun Up. So this is a pretty pivotal turn. Getting this wrong for Alexander means this would be the end for him. So let's see what he does. Seems like we're going to get the Groudon.
Yeah, so it seems like Hirofumi is going suns out, guns out, all blazing.
Oh, yeah.
And with that yawn previously from the Umbreon, not catching the Indeedee's Follow Me, the yawn goes into the Solgaleo. So I think this kind of makes sense to try and push the momentum even further for Hirofumi here, and he's really opting to Dynamax and go for it. I think if Solgaleo, because Solgaleo hasn't revealed like the electric move at all, so if he has it in on this turn, that could be really crazy, like keeping information all the way to game 3.
Absolutely, you're right. This is going to be all telling of what fourth move Solgaleo has. If it has the max Rockfall, it might be able to knock out this Charizard while having some support from the Indeedee to redirect the fire attack from Charizard before knocking it out and eventually going to sleep. Or is it going to be the max Lightning?
It's another Helping Hand. So Indeedee is really just disrespecting Hirofumi's choices, but Hirofumi actually targets into the Indeedee and doesn't go into the Solgaleo. That was such an easy KO. If you didn't like if you targeted the Solgaleo straight away. I think Hirofumi was kind of reading what do you call it, a Kyogre switch in, because the Solgaleo was yawn, but now Solgaleo like does so good damage into the Groudon, but unfortunately Solgaleo has to go to sleep here.
Right, so that was a pretty aggressive move from Alexander, wanting to take out the Umbreon, even if it means that the Solgaleo will be Dynamax and be falling asleep. So yeah, clearly not paying off for him that well, because the Umbreon not only did it switch out for the Groudon, but now the Charizard also Dynamaxed and is ready to dish out a ton of damage. Even though the Kyogre comes in here, Hirofumi really easily able to max guard, switch out the Groudon for something else, and then switch her right back in, and Alexander won't be able to adjust the weather so easily, especially with the Kyogre not being in Dynamax. So really good on Hirofumi to stay aggressive during this turn, and we'll see if Alexander has any wiggle room to come back.
Yeah, the sun and rain, as always, like tail as always time, right, playing a huge impact here. Like we saw earlier in the match, like Hong Kong versus Jamaica, with that sun and moon like thing happening, always being able to guard and then switch out and then switch in to gain control of the sun again. And this is exactly what's happening here. So Galio unfortunately takes this turn of sleep, but Umbreon switches in. Umbreon just really being a good boy all the way through for Hirofumi, just helping to take that hit, knowing that the Kyogre is just gonna, go for Water Spout. And now Hirofumi is then able to bring Groudon in again to just go ham.
Yes, absolutely. And we see the Groudon come back in, and yeah, this is the point where I think Alexander is really pinned. The Solgaleo is slower than the Charizard, so at the mercy of being hit by the G-Max Wildfire without any option to, mitigate the damage by summoning the rain, since the Kyogre is already out on the field. I suppose the one thing he is able to do is to switch out the Kyogre for something else, hope the Solgaleo wakes up in one turn and go for the max guard, but Hirofumi also able to punish that by attacking Kyogre slot instead. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so Kyogre switches out into into Amoonguss. So Alexander's bringing like one different Pokemon here, and here comes a max airstream into Amoonguss's Cobra Berry. Does Amoonguss survive in the sun? Wow, it actually does. That's very, very impressive. And with that airstream boost, Groudon is now able to go for Precipice Blades. Let's see if it hits.
Yes, and we see it go first over the Solgaleo thanks to the max airstream, and now the Solgaleo's weakness policy is procced, so if it's able to wake up in the first turn, just like in game 1, then it might be able to retaliate with an attack on the Charizard, but no, it stays asleep, and yeah, it looks like Hirofumi might be able to run away with this one.
Yeah, so unfortunate sleep turns coming out in this pivotal game, and like that Groudon going for the Precipice Blades, I thought that was a necessary evil. You had to just help dish damage out onto the Solgaleo to try and close out the game. A very smart switch from Alexander, switching the Kyogre out and preserving it, bringing it back in at the same time while Charizard ends its Dynamax, so there could be a chance Kyogre is bulky enough to survive some moves, especially in this kind of team composition, being a pretty much slower in general and having more bulk. Kyogre might still be able to help do significant damage and even threaten the KO onto both Charizard and Groudon.
Right, and it might be really tempting here for Hirofumi to switch out the Groudon to reset the weather and max guard, to protect the Charizard, but if the Solgaleo is able to wake up here, it would be able to set up a Trick Room just like game 1 and then slowly lose, but Hirofumi astutely seen through this potential lose condition for him and just attacks with the Blast Burn into Solgaleo, despite it raining, but still lets him take it out in combination with Precipice Blades. And now I believe we'll have the 4th Pokemon being revealed from Hirofumi's side to basically go up against this Kyogre, and if it's the Regieleki, I think that might spell doom for Alexander.
Yeah, so Hirofumi bringing the sort of tried and tested 4 Pokemon that he believes should allow him to win the game, and sure enough, Regieleki's in the back and poor Kyogre has to sit on the field, and it's really not looking good.
Not what you want to see as a Kyogre player, being the last Pokemon coming in at full health.
But overall, like what a good display of controlling the dynamics of the Charizard in particular and putting it to good effect while keeping control of the weather.
Yes, absolutely. We see a huge adjustment from Hirofumi from game one, just slowly losing to seeing the Trick Room get set up 2 turns, but not giving him any Alexander any opportunities to do that. Over here in game three, just really revving it up with the Charizard from turn one, and just paying off dividends for him not being able to get the Trick Room set up, and as a result, the Charizard's able to just push through, and Alexander just not able to keep up with the damage output.
Yeah, what a masterfully played game from both sides, really. Like, both sides were really trying to outread each other. There was so many like obvious plays that can go in that like could make the game a little bit faster, but
Absolutely.
like they kind of made it a little bit more entertaining, but at the same time, a very good learning experience, right, from both of us as casters to be able to analyze all the the steps of the way and the different board states that we were presented with.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's like really different paces of games, all 3 games. Where the first one was a little bit slower because we had Trick Room go up twice, but just kicking it off just from turn 2, the Charizard Dynamaxing, and yeah, just seeing the adjustments is so nice to see in the best of 3 setting. And it's such a joy to see the different reads happening. Like you said, anything could have gone just disastrously wrong if either player had done what we call the obvious play, but kind of each other respecting each other to be playing the skilled game and not really falling for those traps just made this 3-game set just such a pleasure to watch. So I feel truly lucky to be able to witness that.
Yeah, that was really cool. And for me, I see Hirofumi quite a lot on Twitter, on social media, and also in some of the grassroots tournament from Japan. But this is my first time seeing Hibiki play, and I am very impressed. And I really learned a lot. So thank you, Alexander. So moving on,
Definitely.
we're gonna shout out once again our socials because this is week 3, right? This is the do or die week for all the teams, all the countries in our tournament, and it's nice to always be able to follow the players you like, or follow your countries, right? To see how far they go in this tournament and whether they are able to move on to the group stage or not.
Absolutely. So make sure you join us at VGC Victory Road on Twitter, Victory Road VGC on YouTube, same on Twitch, and then discord.io/Victory Road VGC on Discord. And then finally, the WorldCupVGC.com website, so you can see all of the information that you'd want of the different teams, the different players, and the matchups every week. Like Evan mentioned, we're going to be kicking off the group stage next week, so make sure you follow along. But not to mention tomorrow's matches that you can see here.
Yeah, so for tomorrow, we actually should have 5 matches, so that will be a very nice treat for you guys. So definitely mark these in your calendar and come back tomorrow, I believe at 4 p.m. UTC, to see all the remaining matches play out. I think there are still, like, we went through 4 stories yesterday, 4 interesting stories today. Some people got through to the group stage already because of the results, some people didn't, right? So tomorrow's matches will definitely have so much impact and will be very entertaining to watch. And real quick about like the socials page just now, I want to just shout out to like Victory Road for this opportunity for us, and at the same time like the stream production team in the background, the video production team that have been helping to like process your videos that you guys send in, the replays, and like put them up on YouTube every week. And also like the team that records the scores, like yeah, every time you guys put things in, mark the correct Gastrodon, right, with pink or blue, and always be able to update all these scores real time for you guys to kind of make this whole tournament so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Big +1 there. We see the streams just run so smoothly and with such high quality, and they just make it look so easy. But in the reality, what's happening in the back end is not so easy. It's a lot of work. you might have Gastrodon West, Gastrodon East, and all those small details. They just try to get it right every time. So it's a definitely a big effort that might go unappreciated. So I definitely agree with Evan's point there.
Yeah, and there we go. Like I was trying to look for the two players that were missing. It's actually Inosh versus Qian Qian from Taiwan. So I think that last match will be one that a lot of players would want to look out for. Of the match between Taiwan and Israel, and like Costa. Thanks to Costa for joining us today with the casting. He is there. Is this the correct way? Yeah, there he is. So
Yeah.
he will be featured tomorrow. Notably, a lot of managers will be featured tomorrow, so that is definitely a sight to see, right? I'm very excited for these matches.
Yes, absolutely. It's great to see people on both sides of the casting desk being casted and being castings. So we'll see if Costa's able to put up a fight on the matches as much as he is on the casting desk. Really excited.
Yeah, he did tell us earlier that this is a very like this matchup against Uruguay. They basically have to win to get through to the group stage. Yeah. So yeah, that's all from us today. 4 amazing matches. Thank you so much, Yuki, for joining me. It was such a pleasure and such a good, enjoyable learning experience with you. And for the rest of you, be sure to come join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. UTC. So this has been the Victory World Cup of Pokemon VGC, sponsored by Elgato, GG, and MetaFi. See you guys.